Hello and welcome to Real Menopause Talk. My guest today is Janice Axelbank. When she finally went to her doctor, they discovered she had 0 hormones in her bloodstream. We met up so I could hear about her experience. Hi Janice, it's lovely to meet you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
I would love to know a little bit about your background, where you come from, what you're doing currently, and where you are in your menopause journey as far as you can tell.
I was born here, grew up in the States. I moved back about 17 years ago. I'm currently an associate creative director for a digital agency. I've had 2 girls, married, then got divorced, single parent, which, everyone's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, please. I'm happier. I'm the other side of it. I'm in such a good place. So for me, I've gotten through a lot of stuff and change. So for me, it's I feel like I'm in a good place. The menopause. So I believe that I was, in hindsight, I think I was started to have symptoms of perimenopause right after my second child, and that was 41. But I had no idea at the time. And then I about fast forward like 8 years later, and one of the symptoms was my periods were so incredibly heavy and flooding that, there are times where I couldn't leave the house because I would just need to be near a bathroom every hour. But I didn't want to go back on the birth control pill. I just thought I'm going to see if I can deal with this, naturally with exercise, diet, blah, blah, blah. And then I had dinner with a friend around probably when I was around 48, and she was talking about perimenopause and how she shoved this woman in an elevator, and I was like, she's like, I just lost my mind. I was so angry. And, we got into this argument and she wouldn't move out of the way. So I shoved her and she's like, who am I? Like, why did I act so aggressively? And I realized at times I had symptoms like that. And so she recommended the Marianne Blood Clinic, that did sort of hormonal therapy. So I started on some hormonal therapy then, and that eased my symptoms that I was suffering from them, but I was still menstruating at that point. A few years later, I stopped taking them. It was just a financial thing. I was made redundant a couple of times and in between jobs, and I was just like, I just can't afford that. Let me see if I can do it naturally again, and taking herbs and stuff. And then I would say it was the summer, not last summer, the summer before, I stopped having my period for about 3 months. And then I started having little hot flushes. And I was like, oh, it's not too bad. I'm always cold, so it's fine. And then I started getting my period again. And, sometimes twice a month, and it was still quite heavy. And then last May was the last time I had my period. Literally a month later, the hot flushes came, and they were so ferocious. And it just gradually got worse and worse. I was having 10 to 12 a day. I would wake up drenched in sweat. And then on the flip side, I was having chills. So I was getting both spectrums. And it was, sometimes slightly nauseating. I would get this sense of nausea start in my throat, and I would just be red, dripping in sweat. I couldn't sleep. I would wake up every day, just drenched in sweat. And I was in so much pain. My joints hurt, brain fog, just couldn't pull a sentence together. I was having trouble sleeping. So I started taking a sleeping aid because I'm not a great sleeper to begin with. And I suffer from a lot of stress and anxiety. And I'm doing all the right things. I'm doing yoga. I meditate every day. I'm taking all the supplements that I could take. And then I was like, I just can't take this anymore. So I went back to the Marianne Blood Clinic because a couple of friends went through the NHS to get HRT. And I was like, I just can't wait. I know I'll be on a wait list for months. And now I'm at a point in my life where I can spend that extra money. So I went private, went back to the clinic, and she did blood tests and did a mammogram. And she's like, you have no hormones in your bloodstream. We couldn't detect anything. I had no estrogen, no progesterone, nothing. I'm probably just finishing up my second month of it. I started taking it late September. And within a week, the hot flushes dissipated and the pain in my hip disappeared. I mean, I really felt like I needed a hip replacement. I would need to take painkillers just to go on walk my daughter to school. I couldn't work out, couldn't do yoga. It was really uncomfortable. So I'm taking it now. I am, and I feel the brain fog is kind of getting there. I guess I forgot like so many different things, and I'm like, oh. I'm gradually weaning myself off the sleep aids because I can sleep through the night now, which is lovely. I feel like I'm a little bit more emotional. I'm like crying, and I think it's just the hormones flowing through my body. But the ideal thing was that I'm not having these extreme hot flushes and the pain is gone. So I tell everybody I know. I mean, I have a much older sister, and she's like, I didn't even wait. She's like, I went straight on to HRT. She's like, I tried the red clover and black cohosh or whatever. And she's like, it just didn't work. And I have quite a few friends who are going through menopause or about to and haven't started HRT and I'm like, why not? Why won't you do it? And I know there's a lot of stigma around HRT and the hormones that I'm on. I have to have annual mammograms, which I'm happy to do anyway because of my age. But that's where I am right now. I'm trying to prioritize exercise again, but it's due with working and being a full-time single parent. It's sometimes a bit tricky. But that's where I am on my menopause journey. So yeah, I still haven't had a period. So I'm assuming it's finally reached this point where after a year, I'll be post-menopause. I was speaking to the doctor. I'm like, how long do I have to be on this? And she's like, it really depends on the individual. She's like, I have patients who are in their 80s who are still on it, or you can just wean yourself off. And then, because I'm assuming that eventually the symptoms will dissipate if I wasn't on HRT. But it was just so debilitating on so many levels. Just the physical aspects. I couldn't sleep, couldn't string a sentence together. I was just in so much pain.
What was their reaction to being unable to detect progesterone or estrogen in your bloodstream?
We did a blood test, and she said that they couldn't even find traces of estrogen or progesterone, some slight traces of testosterone. She suggested immediately that I have prescribed me a lozenge. I take one and I split it up into quarters, and I have it and I let it dissolve underneath in my gums. She's like, that way it is directly going into your bloodstream because you have none. And when she was interviewing me, she's like, do you have joint pain? And I'm like, yes. I'm like, is that a symptom? Like I was in so much pain. I could barely walk. And I think in the next week or two, I have to have a follow-up with her so she can tweak the prescription if needed. I think because there was nothing left in my bloodstream, she's suggested that I go on something that was easily absorbed and quickly absorbed into my body rather than a patch or a cream, because most likely in my case, they wouldn't be as effective.
Did she say there could be any further health implications for you had you not been able to see her?
She didn't. The only thing she, made me aware of about taking these hormones is there are certain types of cancers that have estrogen receptors on it. So she's like, we really need to be, litigious about annual mammograms. I'm like, it's fine by me. I need to do them anyway. She didn't really go into that. If I wasn't in a position and lucky enough to go see her, I probably would have gone to my GP. Who knows how long I would have had to wait. They might have suggested I go on antidepressants, and I would have said, no, I need HRT. And yeah, it just surprises me how women just suffer through it. My mom never spoke about it. I'm sure she suffered as well. But I think she was of that era where women just kind of went along with it. Women's roles in life in society have changed radically. And like, she never worked. I worked. It's not our fault. It's a symptom. We're living longer. The population is growing. Women still are in the workforce. It was embarrassing at times. I'd be in meetings and I'd be like, dripping in sweat and trying to just cover it up that I was, people are like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, just like dripping in sweat. I feel that I'm really lucky that I had this opportunity, but I've also prioritized my health because I've probably got 45, 50 years left. I want to make sure the rest of it, I'm in the best health I can be in. And so I can be there for my kids. Yeah.
Going back a little bit, You said it was not this summer just gone, but last summer. So that was right in the middle of the
Lockdown.
beginning, I suppose, of lockdown and the pandemic. Were you still working then? And were you working from home?
At that point, I was furloughed and then I was made redundant. So I was looking for work, but I tried to combat that with exercising as much as I possibly could. So I was like walking a couple hours a day. I was doing boot camp classes inside my flat. So like physically, I was in really good shape. And I think that probably helped as well to ease the symptoms. When it came back again the second time in full force, so to speak, I wasn't exercising. So I think exercising really does help. But at the same time, I couldn't because I was in so much pain. So it was like this cycle of like feeling really bad about myself, physically not feeling well. I couldn't work, I couldn't work out. It was painful to work out. I remember just trying to do a plank in yoga and as like my shoulders were just aching. I couldn't even hold myself up. And I was just like, God, this is what getting, and I thought, oh, I'm just getting old. Sure. And then after, in hindsight, when I spoke to the doctor and she mentioned the joint pain, I was like, oh, it's menopause. I'm not that old yet. Well, I am.
So actually, when she discovered that you had no progesterone and no estrogen, how did you feel when she began to understand what was happening?
I felt relieved and I was so excited to start it because I had ordered it and I went away for a couple of days and I just couldn't wait to get back and try it out. And if I remember the first time I took it, it was absolutely vile and disgusting. I was just like, oh, Jesus Christ, this is so gross. But then after like a week, I got used to it. And then I remember I came home from work and I was like, oh my God, it was like 5 p.m. and I was like, I just realized I didn't have a hot flush today. And I normally, by that time, would have had 8. I mean,
In a day?
at least 12. Yeah. I would wake up with one. Yeah. It was just so many. Like I lost count. I tried counting one day and I lost count. I mean, I would even embarrassingly so, I have a new partner. And there were a couple of times while we were being intimate, I would have one in the middle of that. And I'm like, just a little distracted about your hot flush. Just, and he's been so kind and supportive the whole time, and and he's even done. He's like, I've done some research. He's like, I read that HRT like actually increases a woman's libido, and I was like, I don't know, that's what affected me.
When you were at work with the height of the hot flashes, was that at a point where you still had to pretend that you were okay?
Yeah, I made sure that it was in the summer, so I could get away with wearing, sleeveless t-shirts or tank tops. And then I thought to myself, I'm becoming like one of those old women who you always see like in tank tops. And now I know why. It's because, and it's the middle of winter, it's because they were having hot flushes. So I would just wear clothes that I could like, layer so I could remove. I would go for like a walk and try to, or just go to the loo, just try to like get myself away from what I was doing when they were at their height, and the chills were equally as disturbing because I'd be sweaty, and then at the same time now my body's cooling down, and then I would be shivering. And there were times where I was working from home, I would grab a sweatshirt and then layer on a sweatshirt, layer up, and then about an hour later I would be like taking all my clothes off again because I was having a hot flush.
Do you feel that attitudes are beginning to change in the workplace?
No. I mean, I'm probably one of the oldest people in my job, and I don't let them know obviously how old I am. I'll be 52 in January, so I'm the oldest. So most of the women I work with are late 20s, early 30s. That's the farthest thing from their minds, in the industry that I work in. But I feel like there's more conversations about menopause that are happening now. Like I feel like it's starting to get a lot more interest, on social media than ever before. Or maybe that's because I'm a little bit more receptive and open to it because I'm personally suffering from it. I remember my sister years ago, it was the middle of winter and she was down for Christmas and she was having hot flush and she went outside in just a tank top. I'm like, you're going to freeze to death. What are you doing? And she was like, it's just a hot flush. And I remember thinking, oh God, that really sucks. I never gave it much thought again because it didn't didn't directly affect me
Hmm.
personally, but I'm sure there's thousands of women out there, millions, who are suffering from it and don't have the right information, the right access to education on how to better themselves. And I have made steps, like I stopped drinking a lot of coffee. So I'm down to like 1 cup a day in the morning, and I try not to have any more caffeine during the day. I felt like there wasn't enough information. I was like Googling, I'm like, best foods to eat when you're hit menopause is flax seeds. I'm like, okay, I'll just buy some flax seeds. So I've always been into nutrition. I was like, there must be something I should be doing. Just Googling everything. I also take CBD oil, which helps with the anxiety and the stress. So, and it's hard to tell the anxiety that comes from just sort of anxiety that I've had all my life, or has reaching menopause kind of increased that. And also, the one thing the doctor told me, that she said this, that at the HRT that I'm on, she said also if I'm taking supplements, it also benefits from that. So it helps them work better.
Which supplements are you taking then?
Oh my God, what am I doing? Another symptom that I suffer from is urinary tract infections, which is another sign of menopause, because the walls of the vagina and bladder kind of thin out. So I'm taking cranberry supplements. I'm taking a probiotic for a UTI, which really helps. I'm taking turmeric to reduce inflammation. I'm taking vitamin C, vitamin B12, because I don't eat a lot of meat. And I just started taking, so I was doing some reading, 5-HTP,
Yep.
which helps sort of neurons kind of communicate better. So I just started taking that to help with mood. And then at night, I take calcium, magnesium, and vitamin D. But I've been taking that for years just to help me sleep. And also, I broke my ankle years ago. And I still suffer from restless leg syndrome from when I was pregnant. So the magnesium helps. So that's like my assortment of vitamins and supplements that I take at the moment. And then I try to have a really healthy diet, a lot of fruits and vegetables, and I make a lot of smoothies with chia seeds and flax seeds. And I try to at least walk 10,000 steps a day if I can, and drink a lot of water. Yeah.
Your partner, you said, has been incredibly supportive and done his own research, which is just the most fantastic thing to hear. How did you broach the subject?
Well, when we first started dating, I was still dating, and then I'd missed a couple of years, and I told him, I said, I think, well, I was having hot flushes, and I told him, I said, I think I'm reaching the pause. And I remember one morning I woke up and I was literally drenched in sweat, and he like touched me, and he's like, "Oh my God, baby, he's like, you're like a little seal." Because like my skin was just drenched, and he's like, he went and got a fan to put on me, because then he's just super kind and receptive to it, and it's like, can I, always trying to make sure that I was okay. And he, felt terrible that that women have to go through this. Again, I'm quite lucky. I met like a really lovely person. He did his own research, because he obviously, and he has, a few other friends who are women who are probably similar ages to me, who are going through the similar circumstances. I have a friend who's going through menopause, but she doesn't have any of the symptoms of hot flushes, but she has terrible insomnia. We talk about it all the time, about our experiences and symptoms of hot flushes. And then I have friends who are in their late 40s who are starting to get hot flushes. I'm assuming and I'm hoping and predicting that there'll be more information about menopause in the next few years. And I think possibly women are, embarrassed to talk about it. I know if I mentioned it in any of the meetings or jobs that I was in at my job, I think I would be mocked or teased. So I probably won't say anything.
That's outrageous.
I wouldn't feel comfortable. If there were more women my age that I was working with, then I possibly would. But no, I wouldn't. I don't feel comfortable.
Do you have a request for the younger generation?
Just do your research and be aware, and having that self-awareness, understand what's going through your body, that your body is going through changes and it has nothing to do with you. You're not going insane. You're not depressed. There are hormonal shifts in your body. Hormones regulate, every month. If since we're like 9 or 10, whenever we start menstruating, like 13, our bodies are getting ready to produce and host life. That's an incredible process that our body does every month. And I think we just take our bodies for granted. It's hard to interpret. And there are days when I wake up and I just wake up on the wrong side of the bed. And now I know it's my hormones. And it took me up into my 50s to realize that and to be kind to myself, that it's okay if I'm having a bad day and that's fine. And I'm not, losing my mind. So I just think it's about educating yourself and having the self-awareness, and more importantly, take care of yourself.
Hopefully having that awareness also leads to more compassion for people. If you're not suffering, somebody else might be. And just to understand that they might need a window opening or just a little bit of space, or even just a nod in their direction.
Yeah.
To show that you understand and that you appreciate on some level what they're going through.
Yeah, I'm 100%.
Is there anything that you would like to add? One key tip to somebody, or even to your daughters?
Being kind to yourself. And like I told my daughter, she just started getting her period. I'm like, track your periods. Just put it in your phone so you know, and find out more. Do the research. I think there's a stigma with menopause too. Like, oh, you've reached that age. No one really cares that you're 55 or you're 50. Who cares? You're just old and used and you're washed up. But that's not the case. Women are feeling good. Our life expectancy for women, I think it'll slowly change. Currently, I don't think there's enough information out there because I had to look for it.
I do feel it is changing. And yes, you're so right. It's a midlife change, not an end of life change. Yeah. We have so much more ahead of us and so much to offer. We are all working to make it a normal subject, something that is easy to talk about, because it is just hormonal fluctuations that have a dramatic impact on quality of life. And so it needs to be addressed. Thank you so much, Janice. Take care. Thank you. Bye. Follow us on the podcast apps and Instagram, and sign up at realmenopausetalk.com for all our shows and information. Thank you for listening. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.